The Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov reportedly informed American officials that Kyiv supports 90% of the peace initiative proposed by former President Donald Trump, which the United States presented in Paris. According to a senior official from the U.S. administration, a decision on a complete and comprehensive ceasefire is expected to be made next week in London. The key remaining question is whether Moscow, which has previously obstructed Trump's efforts to secure a ceasefire, will now agree to the proposed plan. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reaffirmed that Ukraine will never recognize the Russian occupation of its territories. At the same time, he indicated a readiness to freeze the front line at its current positions, where roughly 20% of Ukrainian territory remains under Russian control. Sources familiar with the negotiations told Bloomberg that the United States may be willing to recognize Russian control over Crimea as part of a broader peace agreement between Moscow and Kyiv. This potential step signals that Donald Trump is eager to quickly establish a ceasefire agreement. Both Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio hinted on Friday that if there is no progress in the negotiations, the United States may withdraw its mediation efforts. Crimea was annexed by Russia in the year 2014 following an invasion and a referendum conducted under occupation. The international community has consistently refused to recognize the peninsula as Russian to avoid legitimizing the annexation. A shift in the U.S. position could undermine established international norms that prohibit the seizure of territory by force. Zelensky has repeatedly insisted that he will not cede Ukrainian land to Russia. Nonetheless, international recognition of Crimea as Russian would represent a significant diplomatic victory for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has long sought global acknowledgement of the annexation. Despite this, Moscow continues to reject Trump's peace initiative. According to multiple sources, no final decision has yet been made, and the White House and the State Department have declined to comment. An American official involved in the negotiations also refused to provide details regarding the potential recognition of Crimea. As previously reported by Bloomberg, the United States presented its proposals to allies in Paris on Thursday, outlining a possible pathway toward a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. The documents detail conditions for a ceasefire and a phased lifting of sanctions against Moscow if the ceasefire holds. According to the sources, the plan envisions a frozen front line, with most of the Russian-occupied Ukrainian territories remaining under Moscow's de facto control. Kyiv would also be expected to abandon its pursuit of NATO membership. No further specifics of the talks were disclosed due to their confidential nature. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce stated during a Fox News appearance that it is essential for European partners to understand that Washington will not engage in years of negotiations over Ukraine. She added that a planned agreement on mineral resources between the United States and Kyiv is unrelated to the war settlement process. According to the New York Times, there is little serious discussion in the White House about further military aid to Ukraine. European diplomats confirmed that they have not received firm guarantees from the United States regarding continued intelligence sharing with Kyiv, raising concerns amid the ongoing conflict. The Trump administration increasingly views the Ukraine issue through the lens of national interest rather than support, focusing on what the United States stands to gain. Trump is reportedly most interested in securing a broader deal with Russia, which would necessitate resolving the Ukrainian conflict either by implementing a ceasefire or sidelining the issue altogether. In interviews, including one with Tucker Carlson, Trump's advisor Chris Witkoff emphasized the benefits of expanded cooperation with Russia, which would effectively normalize relations. When Carlson raised concerns about Putin's broader ambitions, including the possible reabsorption of former Soviet republics, Witkoff dismissed the idea, asserting that Putin had no intention of conquering Europe or even controlling Ukraine. He questioned the strategic value of occupying Ukraine, comparing it to Gaza, a remark that reportedly shocked European officials. Putin, in his public statements and writings, has often explained his desire to restore Russia's historical stature, referencing the era of Peter the Great. Over the past 2 decades, he has invaded Georgia, annexed Crimea, and consistently denied intentions toward Kyiv until launching a full-scale invasion in February 2022 involving ground forces, cyber attacks, and aerial bombardment. Following the statements made by Trump and Rubio, a pressing question has emerged: whether the United States intends to shift the burden of defending Ukraine entirely onto Ukraine and its European allies while Washington pursues rapprochement with Moscow. Russian forces launched a strike on Ukraine's energy infrastructure in the Sumy region, according to Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation. The regional energy company confirmed partial blackouts, leaving several northern settlements without power. Zelensky had earlier warned of planned Russian attacks on critical infrastructure around the Easter period, based on intelligence reports. Since the ceasefire agreement concerning energy infrastructure was reached in March, Russia has violated the deal more than 30 times, averaging over one strike per day. These strikes have targeted vital elements of Ukraine's energy network. Ukraine continues to comply with the agreement and shares evidence of violations with the United States and international partners. The Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed concerns to a Chinese diplomat about Beijing's official stance on the war, suggesting that recent developments call China's sincerity into question and may damage bilateral relations. Ukraine has requested direct dialogue with Beijing to prevent a breakdown in trust and continues to maintain diplomatic channels. The United Nations Security Council held a closed session at Russia's request to discuss the energy infrastructure ceasefire agreement. Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia accused Ukraine of violating the agreement, alleging that Ukrainian forces carried out approximately 120 strikes on Russian energy and fuel facilities since March 18th. He claimed that Russia has abided by the agreement, whereas Ukrainian forces have largely ignored it. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed that Russian missiles struck the Ukrainian city of Sumy. According to Ukrainian authorities, 34 people were killed and 117 wounded. Lavrov stated that the target was a gathering of Ukrainian and Western military personnel, implying that NATO troops were present and guiding Ukrainian operations. He cited reports that Americans played a central role in organizing long-range missile strikes on Russian targets, suggesting that without U.S. involvement, most of these missiles would not have launched from their bases.